So was it worth upgrading from my Sony kit lens, the 28 to 60mm f4 to 5.6, all the way to the Sigma 24 to 70 f2.8 lens? This is a question that I'm trying to answer with this video. Now this is going to be a two-part series video, and in this first part, I'm going to be going over my Sigma unboxing experience. So I'm going to give you my first impressions, and I'm going to give you some different types of tests like minimum focus distance and whatnot. But most importantly, I'm going to be running an A/B test comparison. And this is going to be a very interesting experiment we're going to do on YouTube, where I'll be showing you footage from the kit lens and from a 3 times more expensive Sigma Pro Art lens, and kind of see if which one can you spot. Is it A or is it B? So when we get to that part of the test, please let me know in the comments down below, and then I'll be releasing a second video that will give all the answers. And then in that video, I'll also be comparing the full frame system to my previous Panasonic G9 Micro Four Thirds system. So definitely hit the subscribe button if you want to see the results of the A/B test when comparing the kit lens versus a very expensive standard zoom lens. By the way, I know this might be a really long video, so I'm going to add chapter links in the description down below. So if you don't want to hear me talking about unboxing or my first impressions or the setup of this lens, definitely use the timecode stamps down below. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's go into my vlog where I give my first impressions of the Sigma lens. Let's get right into it. So today we're going to be opening the new Sigma 24 to 70mm, and I'm going to be replacing this kit lens, or perhaps I'll be keeping the kit lens as a backup or like a more compact, lighter type of lens. And obviously right here we got the package. And one thing I'm really worried about ordering stuff on Amazon, especially when it comes to really expensive lenses, is what is the possibility of them throwing this around? You know, we've seen delivery carriers just throwing boxes around, and there's obviously a very delicate glass element in there. So hopefully my package arrives safely. Another thing that I keep constantly hearing about on the forums about this lens is that there's a lot of dust that gets built up very easily, especially in comparison to some of the competitors, such as the Tamron 28 to 75. So I'm rather concerned about like the long-term outlook of this lens. And do I have to return this? I mean, I only have 30 days to evaluate this within the return policy, and obviously there's a warranty, but I really don't want to go through that process. I just want to keep this lens because I'm really hoping I like it. But if I'm paying so much money, pretty much the same cost of this Sony Alpha A7C, maybe a little bit less, I would be really disappointed if it broke. Okay, so you can see there was no effort to put any protection on this lens. Usually there's some kind of cushion, let's say like an airbag or something that, would lessen the impact of this box. So hopefully this box has some protection. Concerned about that. And maybe I'll have to take advantage of this 7-year warranty. Hopefully it's honored in, Canadian photography lens. So I guess it's offered in my country, in Canada, which is nice. Okay, so that's interesting. There's some kind of strap that's involved. So this was in a really cold environment, like minus 5 degrees. So this feels really cold in my hands. Hopefully there's no damage caused by the cold extreme weather in Canada. Okay, so that's good. So it does come with some kind of protection. It comes with its own case. That is a very nice surprise. I wasn't expecting that. So I have to say, this case does seem rather protective. There's a lot of padding in it, so that's a really nice bonus. And I have to say, this is quite heavy so far, but so far it's not that bad. Okay, so there's some pretty protective foam here. So that's a good sign. So I guess they really take good care of these lenses. Oh wow, this is really heavy. Holy cow. All right, let's put that down for a sec. Here's the lens hood. This is nice to keep it on so you kind of protect it. Now everything's really cold in here. I wonder what the operating temperature of this lens is, because hopefully the cold doesn't cause any damage to it, let's just say. Okay, I don't want to drop this. All right. Now this is a chunky monkey. Holy cow. Wow, that feels really smooth. This is probably the smoothest focus ring I've ever felt. Okay, let's try this. Wow. That feels really buttery. Kind of a lot of resistance, if I have to admit. Okay, this button feels good. So here we can learn more about the 7-year warranty for Canadian warranty. And you can see, I don't know if this is required, if I need to actually register on Sigma Canada, but I'll let you guys know in the comment down below. Now, one thing I do want to note is that there is still a $15 service fee for shipping charges, which is kind of unfortunate if there's any issues.
And about the dust issue, it says this warranty does not cover damage caused by impact, water, sand, battery leakage, nor by accident, misuse, or unauthorized repair. So, I mean, I don't think dust really falls in this category. So as long as you take care of the lens, you should still be covered by the warranty. Now, one concern is the little note here, program may be withdrawn without notice. So I have to say, my first impression, touching this feels really cold. It's extremely cold, so it definitely made a very strong metal. And yeah, it's really concerning how cold it is. I mean, hopefully it's not a big deal. Hopefully this guy warms up to the environment. I kind of even don't want to use this until it warms up to the ambient temperature. I don't expect this to take this out much, but it is really cold, so it definitely sustained a lot of cold weather. Now, one of the main reasons why I wanted this lens over the Tamron 28-75, obviously the first one was the focal length. At the wide end, this is 24 millimeters, and I think that would be very useful, especially if you were to do things like cropping in for the gyro data on Catalyst browse. You're not going to be able to get those extra reach. Obviously, I'm living in a small place, so it's kind of hard to extend the lens further out or back up a bit. So I do appreciate that extra reach. Another use case is vlogging, but given the weight of this, it probably is very unpractical or not very practical to vlog with. Just holding the lens in my hand right now, just talking about it feels extremely heavy. Like if I keep my hands in a very bent position, not out like this, but bent, it really does feel really heavy, very hefty, but it does feel premium, which I really do like. But, you know, I much prefer getting the lighter version, the Tamron 28-75. However, like I said before, I really do appreciate the buttons and the extra wide focal length at 24 millimeters. So that was the only reason. I did not care about the build quality. I didn't care that it's heavier. In fact, I find those as major cons. And especially with all the comments out there saying that this lens collects a lot of dust. Well, let's find out. Okay, so rightfully so, there's no dust on this whatsoever. And what they say on the internet, these folks, is that using a zoom lens, there's some kind of section that kind of draws in the dust. And they say it usually goes on the front of the element. And I don't know if these people are, I mean, I did see pictures where it was quite a lot of dust. It was scattered all over the area. I don't know if they're taking this to busy deserts. But I don't know if that could, you know, that trend could continue and you basically would ruin the image quality. I've heard many stories that, you know, dust doesn't really impact the image quality. Maybe on the rear, over here, maybe it does, but I don't know if that's even true itself. So yeah, it looks pretty clean there. Okay, so I can't seem to get this lock to work. I don't know if it needs to be mounted on the camera for it to work, but obviously it's a zoom lock, so if I zoom it to that specific point and I try to lock it, it doesn't work. Interesting. So in order to engage the lock, you need to set it to the 24 millimeter focal length, and that will just prevent the zoom lens from actually moving. This is probably just for storage. It's not actually meant for, I thought what you could do is set it to, say, for example, I want it to be set to 50 and then have it locked at 50 at all times during a shoot so it doesn't like kind of creep. But I guess it's more for storage, so interesting idea. So why did I upgrade from the lens kit that is provided in the Sony A7C? Well, based on all the reviews, that lens kit, which is the 28 to 60 millimeter f4 to 5.6, which is a variable aperture, apparently it does have extremely good sharpness, and it's generally a better kit lens than the previous version, the 28 to 70 with optical stabilization, featured on the A7 III. That was something that was featured previously, and they said the reviews were amazing. Like this little kit lens, obviously compared with the compact body of the A7C, is a very good kind of combination and will actually produce pretty good results. Now, the reason why I did upgrade is the minimum focal distance on that was about 30 centimeters. And that was something that I was not used to. I was using professional lenses on the Panasonic G9, and I found that being able to get really close to the subject, kind of like this, and not have to worry about getting too close and then losing the focus was something that I really wanted, and I missed it immediately as soon as I used the kit lens. Now, in terms of the sharpness and image quality, that's the second thing that I really care about besides the focal length. And I did notice that the sharpness, based on some reviews out there, if you look at this video, I'm showing you comparing the sharpness of this kit lens, the 28 to 60 millimeters, compared to, let's say, the Tamron or this Sigma lens. And it actually shows that it's just as sharp or as sharp at f4 and above. Now, obviously, the main reason why anyone would get a more professional lens is to have the wider aperture at f2.8 to get that, you know, background blur or bokeh, so you can have that cool cinematic background blurry, which, you know, every YouTuber strives to get. But I honestly did not care about that, because coming from the Micro Four Thirds world, the best zoom lens was the kit lens that's on the full frame camera, which is really funny. If you look at equivalents, The zoom lens on my previous 12-35 on the Panasonic G9, which is a micro four thirds crop sensor, that was equivalent to my kit lens, or even a little bit better at f2. So I didn't really care about that. I thought the results were pretty good. The light capture was really good. I didn't really care, but I care about the buttons. I care about the minimum focus distance. And I also really do care about picture quality. But who knows if this lens is actually better at f4 and above in comparison to the kit lens that is provided by the AE7C. So hopefully the color rendition, the contrast, just everything in general, just the overall look of it is a much improvement, because I don't want to go out and spend all that money and basically get some buttons and obviously a wider aperture, which obviously is huge. I don't want to discount that. Please, f2.8 is huge compared to f4, but for my personal uses, I didn't care too much about it. I cared more about getting that extra focal length, getting that minimum distance, and getting those buttons. So hopefully the bonus for me would be there would be a huge image quality increase over the kit lens. And everyone said, and based on those test results that I did show, there isn't much an improvement at f4. So is it discernible? We'll find out. So I'm going to be doing a very basic comparison between this kit lens, the 28 to 60 millimeter Sony, versus the Sigma 24 to 70. And now the purpose of this is really just kind of for video people, video autofocus, for example, eye tracking. And most importantly, I'm not trying to pixel peep. I just want to get the overall impression. So for example, obviously the background blur is going to be different, but if we level the playing field at f4 at 28 millimeters, what is the actual image quality? How are the colors, how are the contrast? I'm gonna try to keep everything consistent, white balance and all that stuff. So without any further ado, let's get into a very quick and dirty lens quality comparison image quality test.
Okay, so here's the first test. Obviously we're at a wider focal length at 28 millimeters. Can you spot which one is the kit lens and which one is the much more expensive Sigma Art 24 to 70 millimeter lens? I've tried my best to match the same settings, but please excuse any discrepancies. This is taken at 28 millimeters, and here we are at a tighter focal length of 50 millimeters. Please let me know in the comments which one you think is what, and I'll let you know in the second part of this video.
So one thing I want to test is the minimum focusing distance at the wide end. So 28 millimeters, I'm going to take this object and I'm just going to try and move it as close as possible and kind of just get the feel for how it loses focus. So generally speaking, I would have liked to, have it much closer, but it already loses focus. It already loses focus quite early, so I need to move it back. And then, okay, maybe around here. So that's really far away from the camera.
As you can see here, the Sigma lens is much better at minimum focus distance. It's a no contest.
So I have to say right off the bat, trying to vlog with this with one hand is extremely difficult. I do have a long reach, so I do really take advantage of the field of view of 24 millimeters. So let's say I'm walking with this lens. One of the things that's kind of annoying is there's a lot of shake because obviously I'm not stabilized. And if I do use the IBIS, the in-body stabilization of the Sony camera, it's not very good. It's nowhere near the level of Panasonic. So what ends up happening is you'll need to turn off stabilization, increase your shutter speed, and use the gyro data that's actually on the camera that's recorded with the film. So you can in post use Catalyst Browser, which is a Sony piece of software. I'm kind of running out of breath because this is really heavy. And that would effectively crop and help with the stabilization. And with the stabilization, you're pretty much going to go back down to a 28 millimeter focal length. So even if you do get the 24 millimeter focal length, it's still really difficult to kind of get a wide shot because you need to stabilize the shot. Unless what you see right now is okay, but holding my camera out with one hand is extremely strenuous. Maybe I need to take a break, maybe hold it like this. That's a little better. Now I can see why the lock is very helpful to have, because if I'm holding it, and I want to keep it at 24 millimeter focal length, I don't want the zoom to change. I don't want it to zoom up more on my face. So I do appreciate the lock. I do think it's a very useful feature. And right off the bat, I have to say, switching between autofocus continuous and manual focus, wow, that was quick, way faster for my workflow. I really do enjoy having the buttons, and I can't wait to customize the C1 button that's on the lens. Everyone says that button is kind of useless, but for A7C owners, people who really lack a lot of custom features, like custom buttons, it's going to be very helpful to have that extra button over there. Hopefully, Sony allows me to use that button to maybe toggle stabilization on and off, because that's a feature I'll be using to toggle on and off quite often, and I don't want to have to resort to using one of the buttons on the back or having to go through the function menu or use the menu system, because that's really going to slow down my workflow. Whew. Okay, that was very, very heavy.
Okay, so for the moment of truth, let's see if I can customize the button on the actual lens to something very customized instead of autofocus lock. So one of the things I did miss on my Panasonic zoom lens was a switch to enable optical image stabilization on the lens, which would also turn the body stabilization on. So it was a very simple workflow process. You know, if you want to film stabilized footage, flip it on. If you're on a tripod, flip it off, and not having to use these clunky menu systems over here. Hopefully we can use this button to toggle steady shot on this camera. So we go to the film custom key. And then we can see focus hold. We definitely don't want that. So what do we got? Interesting. The hell? What does that mean? Okay, let's click that one. Okay, so we're gonna go here and push the autofocus lock button. Okay, so, well, that's unfortunate. It doesn't toggle. It just brings up the menu and I still have to press like off or something like that. So that is unfortunate. I mean, it saves me from having to do function. Then I have to look for it. Like, where did I put it? I was like, oh, it's over here. Then I turn it off. So I guess it does help a little bit. But it would have been great if it was like a toggle. For example, if I press the record button, I have it programmed to, I have it to program auto white balance lock. Or for example, on the custom button near the garbage can, I can lock my exposure.
So that whole segment I filmed, I was at f1.6. Now I've decreased it to f2.8. So I should definitely be getting a better background blur, hopefully. And hopefully the autofocus system is really good. It's picking up my face, my eye, and it's kind of continually tracking me, because that's one concern, is that if you don't get a native Sony lens, how will the autofocus in video perform? Because that's all I care about. Obviously, in the photo stills, everything's gonna work. So yeah, hopefully this image is obviously less grainier because it uses a lower ISO, because it has a wider aperture, which lets in more light and therefore increases my picture quality. That's very heavy. I just want to conclude with one thing about the 28 to 60 millimeter kit lens that came with my Sony A7C. And given how light this is and how compact it is, it's practically a pancake lens. And coming from the Micro Four Thirds systems and Panasonic lines, being used to having pancake lens like the Panasonic 20mm f1.7, I definitely want to keep this lens. Even though it's not pro grade quality, I'm definitely not a pro here, but lugging this around, bringing this on a train, or just traveling in general with this huge heavy lens, first, it's very expensive, so if something falls, I don't want it to smash. And I don't really need to go outside and get really epic shots or anything like that. I really care about filming indoors and just getting the best quality indoors, because I'm taking advantage of the fast wide aperture at f2.8. When you're outdoors, you're just plenty of sunlight, except obviously when it's nighttime. So I definitely think this is a really good companion to have another standard kit zoom lens. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but I think having this really large one at home and this little small one, I'm just trying to rationalize my decision in keeping both. What do you guys think? Should I sell this and get something else like a prime lens? I'm not a big fan of prime lens because I like the versatility of a zoom lens. I just want one lens that kind of does the job of everything, jack of all trades, master of none. So let me know what you guys think, me keeping the kit lens after having spent so much money on this really expensive zoom lens. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you like it. Do leave a like and do leave a comment if you have any questions or comments. See you in the next video.